So, hello and welcome to the Automation Revolution with Nick Gradwell and me, Jane Skews. Nick, I'd like to introduce Nick. He's the founder and CEO of Amberley Innovations, a company wholly centred on helping businesses to automate mundane tasks and free up time to focus on success. Is that a good, succinct summary of what you do, Nick?
Yeah, that's pretty close to the mark. I think we set up Amberley Innovations because I used to run a software business, and one of the challenges that we used to face was just the everyday grind of administration, pulling reports together. I can remember spending a week just pulling together data for business reviews, and it was just unnecessary work. We were focusing on getting the content together rather than focusing on what the content was and the value that we could bring.
And what it was telling you.
Exactly that. And so when I thought when I discovered RPA, robotic process automation, and how it had progressed with AI, I just thought, gosh, I could really use this in my business. And I thought, I'm sure other businesses could really value from this. So I'm sort of scratching my own itch here by trying to solve a problem that I certainly faced, and I believe I know other businesses are facing. And so, that's how Amberley Innovations came about, because we just wanted to help businesses be more productive and stop just spending time doing all the stuff that most of us hate doing.
Which sounds eminently sensible.
Well, yeah.
I was going to ask about your background.
Yes.
But I don't know how much you want to go into that, whether a lot of that is relevant. I suspect a lot of it is relevant to what you're doing now and has led you to this point.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I started my career as a programmer. So, I've always been in software and technology. Even as a young boy, many, many years ago, I just love gadgets. I love technology. So I became a programmer. But what I found is, so I got a degree in software engineering and computer science. And but what I found was, after a year, 2 years of being a programmer, I found I was actually just not very good at it.
It takes a lot of confidence to get to that conclusion, I think, maybe.
Well, maybe I just found it very. I like developing. I like developing stuff and making it work, but the real genius around the programmer is a software developer that can make things work for everyone all of the time. Right? And I just wasn't that person. But what I did like was where technology meets people, and how you can enhance people's lives with technology. So I moved more into the product world. And
I was going to say
in the product marketing, product management side of things, and that's where I stayed for a long time. So I spent about 20 years in product management before I started running. I took a job as a divisional president for a large software company, where I felt that I could apply that more broadly across an organisation, and that was where I was before I came to Amberley Innovations, really.
So you've taken all of that experience and understanding of the market and of what people need, and of the need for to make things easier and facility and an understanding that builds into success in companies.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there's nothing worse than the only thing there's only one thing where people aren't using technology to solve a problem is when they're using technology badly to solve a problem, right? And I mean, we can all relate to that, right? Where we've all got software and technology, and it's meant to be the next latest and greatest thing, and it's meant to solve this problem and that problem, and 90% of the time that falls short for a lot of us. So the idea with Amberley Innovations is actually, look, let's make the most of what you've got, and then let's build around the edges and automate what you've got in order to fill in some of those gaps. So I think.
So I might be jumping ahead, but it sounds to me as though people are very, very involved in this process. I mean, automation. I'm about to ask you about why automation now, why it's a revolution now. It's been around a long time, but it's something that people think is not very people based. That it's actually takes away from people being involved. And what you're saying is that the people themselves are the center of your focus.
Absolutely, it's got to be that way, and I think we've seen a huge strides in that.
Mm.
I think if we can all pretty much pick up a phone now and use a new app, right?
Yeah,
Because we're all building and installing new apps. Now, some of that's familiarity because a lot of apps copy other apps and the way they do things. So we built up a level of familiarity there. But there is now much more of a focus of what is a user trying to achieve, and how are they trying to achieve it, and what is the best way and the shortest path to getting to where they want to go. I mean, Jane, you and I, just before we came online here, you were talking about the streaming software that you've just got your hands on,
yeah,
and
literally.
how good it is, and how you can actually use it now. So there's certainly.
Intuitive is the word, isn't it? I think.
Sorry, say.
Intuitive.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's what you need it to do rather than imposing some kind of other thing on you.
Exactly that. And so I think we're getting there, but we
Mm.
also have a history of legacy in here where we're all using old software. And I also think that, again, I can make the same illustration with the mobile, right? How many different apps do you have on your phone, right?
So many.
So many, so many. It's get installing a new app. Well, certainly for me, and maybe I'm not the common case, but almost for me, I'm installing apps almost on a daily basis, or certainly one a week at
Yeah.
least.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, actually. You think you've finished and you don't need anything else ever again, and then suddenly 5 apps later, you're deleting things because your phone can't cope.
You're exactly right, and you're touching on one of the points and one of the problems of the technological revolution, and one of the reasons why I believe that automation is necessary now. Which I think is something you were going to come on to, actually,
This
wasn't
is,
it?
this is back to why we've called this the automation revolution. Why now? Exactly.
Yeah, so let's carry on from that point. There's a number of reasons, but the one we were just talking about is we have so many applications these days. We have so many different pieces of software that we're interfacing with on a day-to-day basis. Through the whole COVID crisis, I think we've all learned to use online. God knows how many online meeting pieces
So
of software.
many. All of them.
All of them, yeah, all of them. And one of the things that that we found is that this, a lot of businesses are entering data in multiple places. This is a real challenge for companies. You'll have your, the sales team will be using a CRM, customer relationship management piece of software,
Yeah.
but then they also have to put information into their finance system as well. And equally, the finance team have to get hold of information that's in the CRM and cut and paste it. You've got data in so many different places now that it's hard to keep track of it,
And
and
so much of it.
yeah, absolutely. But a lot of it is incredibly valuable,
Mm.
right? We need this information. So when I talk about automation, one of the big tasks that we're asked to do when we start working with businesses is, look, let's talk about finance, for example. The finance team needs to pull in a lot of data about monthly sales. So their month-end processes are requiring data from here, data from there, data from
Yeah.
somewhere else. Then they have to pull it in, then they have to check it and validate it before they can close out on month end, which is a real challenge. So, I was talking to an FD, a financial director I used to speak to quite regularly, and he said, although he's got more software for his month end, it's actually taking him 2 or 3 days longer
Wow.
than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
Because
And
you're pulling in data from all of those disparate places.
yeah, they're dealing with different. The company's grown, right?
Yeah.
And they've acquired a lot of people, but we've acquired other businesses. But while they've acquired those businesses, they've also acquired their systems that go along with that. And the process of taking a business from one system and putting it onto another is not a small undertaking, to be honest.
It doesn't even sound small to me, and I'm not in your industry, so it sounds like a nightmare.
It really is. So one of the things that automation does is it can take data from multiple places and bring it all into one place. Not only that, you can get it to notify people when it's there, or notify people when it's not there. Probably more importantly for the
Yeah.
finance team, right? and so it can automatically nudge people to get that information sent to them. And it can also do a lot of sort of pre and post processing. So it can analyze the data, look at the information, make sure it's complete, and then check it's accurate by validating against other systems.
Okay. That takes a lot of man hours out of that process.
Oh yeah, I mean it's tremendously time consuming, and it's exactly the point I was making before. Why we just want to get rid of these time sinks really that take up all of our time. I mean, I should probably say there are multiple ways of doing this, right? So when I talk about automation, there's loads of technologies out there to do this. So we have, and I'll come on to it shortly, but RPA software, robotic process automation software, allows basically software robots to do the job of a human, right? So they're literally clicking buttons, copying data, pasting it into other applications. And it can do that with a high degree of accuracy compared to a human. And it doesn't get tired, right?
4 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly that piece. And so they don't get tired. But one of the reasons, I mean, this software's been around a long time, but with the advancements in AI, it's and incorporating that into RPA, the software is now able to be more intelligent about reading the screen. Okay, so as we know, websites change. I mean, Facebook, how often do they shift things around and move?
Is that? Do you think that's the crux of it? That addition of AI into the RPA systems makes this revolution basically because it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think there's two key pieces. To put it very shortly, there's two key pieces. There's there is the introduction of AI into RPA that makes it just so much more robust, and also the proliferation of systems and legacy systems has increased that workload on the everyday user. So the combination of those two, I think, is what's driving that revolution. Absolutely.
And I think that probably leads us into my next question, which is about people and about people losing jobs, because that's often a criticism of RPA, of bring the robots in and lose headcount, and how do we hollowing out of the workplace? All of these things that we've read about. How does RPA contribute, and how do you feel about that aspect of what you do? Is that a real thing, or is it saving people effort that needs to be made? I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, it's an obvious concern in the same way as when robots were brought into the manufacturing workplace. That had an impact. But I think
that's a direct comparison, isn't it?
It is. It's exactly the same. And yes, people had to retrain and reskill, but employment, COVID accepted, is at very low rates. And that's despite a complete automation revolution in the manufacturing world. In the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? What I see with RPA and automation software is it's there it's a tool, right? It's there to help the employee rather than to replace the employee. We talk about AI is driving this and AI is driving that, and I think we're going to see some enormous advancements in AI. But at the moment, it still needs that human eye. Right? It absolutely needs that human eye over it. And to be honest, I think, it allows people to work on their real day-to-day activity. So, allowing them to push their business forward, allow them to achieve their goals. And you know what? If they've got a little bit of extra time to have a cup of coffee and sit back during that and achieve more, what's wrong with that? I think the other side of it, if you just look at it, is how many efficient businesses who are achieving their goals are laying people off, right?
Not that many.
Not that many, and so I think I think it's a case of people's jobs maybe changing slightly over time.
I was going to say that. I mean, I remember, I'm going to give my age away now, but I remember when I first started working in an office, and you have a kind of it's gone off, a kind of temp filing job. That's the entry level job, isn't it?
Yes.
Filing paper in cardboard files in filing cabinets. And
Wow.
I suspect a lot less of that goes on nowadays than it used to.
Yeah, certainly. We've not quite hit the paperless office yet,
Not
but
quite. No, not. Yeah, it's much reduced, I think.
yeah, I agree. And again, this COVID thing has certainly led to a reduction in paper. I think actual physical paper being distributed around the globe.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in short, if your sole goal was to reduce headcount in a business, I think that could be something you could achieve. But I don't. That's not the sole purpose of it. Efficiency is what we're looking for.
Yeah,
It's not about losing headcount. It's about being more efficient, more effective, more responsive to the
and
market,
achieving more,
and achieving
not
more.
just
Yeah,
achieving the same, achieving more,
yeah. Doing more with less.
doing more with less. Yeah, it's really interesting. How are there any specific industries that particularly benefit from what you do? I can see it appealing. Well, you've mentioned finance already.
Yes.
I mean, that's an obvious one, I suppose.
So there are. I mean, anywhere where you've got lots of process that drives a business. So obviously things like finance and banking obviously lend themselves to that.
Yeah,
Anywhere where there's heavy regulation, where you can use it to both drive process and audit process as well, which is
yeah.
a really big benefit from it. I think anywhere where where you're working with lots of different data from lots of different sources is a key benefit. I was talking to we're doing some work with some private equity firms and venture capitalists at the moment, where they have multiple businesses. I mean, I mentioned the financial director I was talking to before, where they've been highly acquisitive. So anywhere where you've got lots of different systems with data in lots of places, like private equity,
Oh, I can suddenly see that. So they've brought 20 new companies into the fold. Each one of those 20 companies has its own systems, a way of doing things, and integrations and everything.
yeah.
And you need those people to be working together, those systems all to be cohesive.
Absolutely, particularly for reporting.
Yeah,
A lot of private equity firms are public businesses,
yeah.
where it's really important that they get that financial information and it's accurate and timely.
Mm.
Right? So 20, 30, 40 businesses getting that information on time and effectively is a challenge. Now
Huge.
there's the human element to that, where you've got to make sure that everybody's doing what they need to be doing in terms of providing that data. But there's no reason for people to be manually sending emails around and updating spreadsheets. That should all be automated. Absolutely should be.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I would say about that is, although it applies to lots of different industries, there's a very strong focus on the functional areas of the functional business unit. So it does have a strong lend itself very well to finance. It does lend itself very well to sales. I mean, you can reduce a lot of time at reaching out to new clients and leads. You can automate a lot of those processes.
You can really see where that would benefit, actually, because that's some of the real hard grind of sales, isn't it? Is keeping track of who's who and where exactly they are.
Yeah, well, exactly. And if you can automate, I mean, a lot of the new CRMs have got a lot of automation built into them to help do that. Yeah, and it is getting there. But salespeople are busy enough contacting people, finding leads.
I was going to say, it's
let alone having to update systems.
That same story where the CRM's only as good as the information that's actually put into it, isn't it? So if there's a way of it gathering information without the busy salesperson having to sit down and repeat,
You're exactly right.
It's an old story, but I think it's still relevant.
It's the same with it's absolutely the same with marketing. You should know this, Jane. And
yes, I know. It's true. Any business looking for new customers, any business kind of trying to keep track of existing ones, measuring any aspect of what you do actually is much easier if you don't have to manually input anything. Or, yeah.
Absolutely. checking things, QAing, all of that side of things. If you can, and a computer is going to be, particularly when you're validating information, a computer is going to be so much more accurate at doing that. I mean, there's a company that we've been working for who they're actually construct data centers, and they build out these cost books for building data centers. So, I mean, these spreadsheets are enormous. They have several, tens of tabs, thousands of lines of data on each sheet. And one of the things we've done is we've worked with this company it goes through their entire spreadsheet and looks for errors in that spreadsheet. So it looks for formulaic errors, it looks for missing data. You can't account for finger trouble. So if somebody puts 100 instead of 1,000, there's
Which
very
happens
little.
more often than you'd think.
Well, it does happen, but then that's where we can do validation against previous builds. So you can say, "Whoa, hold on, what's that discrepancy there?" And that's the sort of reporting we've been doing with the business. So when I talk about automation, I talked about driving robots and this, that, and the other. Actually, the way we approach automation is actually what are your daily tasks that are taking up either providing the highest level of inaccuracies or just taking up the most time, and that's where automation should be. So at Amberley, we aren't just looking at a RPA solution or a custom development solution or an AI solution. We look at where the problem is, if it's process, if it's automation, if it's if it's AI, if it's inaccurate data, if it's data. We look at that as a whole and find the best solution, or try to find the best solution with the customer to reduce their pain and the time required, really.
So, for anyone out there, kind of considering bringing this into their company, I suppose, is it easy to get started? Would you say that's the starting point? It's looking at your pain points, looking at where those points are.
Yeah, it is, and most businesses know that. I mean, I'm sure we've all been in the pub on a Friday night, Jane, where somebody's been complaining about, oh God, we have this system that does this. It's such a nightmare, and we can't get this, and we can't get that. Those are the sort of problems, in fact, I picked up quite a bit of business in the pub from those kinds of
conversations.
Yeah, absolutely, and So is it easy to get started? So you're right. The first point is to identify a real pain point, right? And to understand where actually, if somebody or something could do this for me, we'd be in a better place. The next piece is it all depends on how the skills you have in house as well. So if you're technologically well versed, or you have somebody who's got some skill. There is a lot of software out there that's either open source or free, or the big players. So you've got the people like UiPath and Automation Anywhere. They all offer a community edition. So you can get started with those.
So you could look at your company and look at one of those platforms and see what is applicable to you and whether you could do something.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a word of warning on those that costs can spiral very quickly. So
I was going to say free to a point, or not really free.
Yeah,
affordable to a point, and then very, very not.
Exactly that. So you get to a point where you've got embedded in your organization, you want to spread it across the organization, or you need to put it on this server or that server, and all of a sudden, actually, we've got to start buying licenses. But then you've got the other side of it where there is the open source versions, but the level of skill, they're not as easy to use as those platforms. So you've got that dichotomy between the two. So it really does depend on what you're trying to achieve, how broadly you want to take it, and how much money you've got, and how much expertise and time you've got, really.
And is that where you come in usually?
Yeah, it is. So what we've tried to achieve is a lot of large enterprises have got an automation strategy, right? And if you look at the Gartner reports and Forrester reports, you can see that automation, the forecast for growth of automation,
enormous.
Absolutely enormous. They're talking about it being the next big thing now. Everybody's
clearly, automation revolution is not wrong. It's not mistitled.
No, I really don't think it is. I think those two pieces I mentioned to you before, the complexity of the workplace and then the advancements in AI are absolutely driving that. And there's no doubt about it. So, but what we're seeing is the high-end businesses, the people who've got deep enough pockets to be able to, deep enough pockets and enough time and resource to be able to invest in this are going for it and going for it.
Enterprise companies largely.
Yeah, I mean, look at the biggest company in the world who've been all about automation since day one, Amazon, right? That's and the levels of automation they have is mind blowing. It's absolutely staggering. They don't do anything unless you can automate. They come with automation first, right? And they've become the biggest company in the world. So that probably says something.
Automation above people, though.
Amazon. Yeah. I'm not. Let's touch on that piece. But
that's a different discussion, maybe.
It is. But they have, they have been extraordinarily successful through automation. So
yeah, it's very true.
So what we're saying, what we are seeing in the sort of mid-tier businesses and SMEs is just a lack of time, knowledge, resource, all of those things, preventing them jumping onto that bandwagon, and that's where I came from. I came from a mid-sized business, and what we've tried to do is we put together an approach which we call automation outsourcing or automation partnering, where we will work with a business. We guarantee an ROI for a start, so if you're going to be spending money and time with us, you're going to get a return on that.
That's amazing.
Well, it's not hard to do, actually. It sounds like a huge risk, but we've never come across a business where we've not been able to provide an ROI.
It's an incredible thing to be able to say, actually.
Yeah, well, we put it out as a challenge. So come on, find us something where we can't get you an ROI. That's fun. So what we do is we'll start with a smallish project, but our idea is to work with you to look for opportunity in your business to automate, right? And then we will go ahead and build the automation for you. We'll manage it. We'll build the infrastructure that you need if you haven't got it in-house. And so we'll just work with you as your partner to help you automate your business. So because we believe we give an ROI guarantee, then the risk is very low for small and medium-sized businesses, and also our we believe that our price points comparatively to the larger organisations are much lower, and the reason that is that we've been able to do this. I mean, my initial approach was to partner with the big guys and then work with some of the small guys and sell in, but I just found it was cost prohibitive for the smaller businesses, or I just couldn't keep the business running. So our approach has been, because we are technical and we've got a team of very strong technical people, we use a lot of the outsourced technologies. We use libraries out there. We use things that are either free or very cheap, but we have the skills and capabilities to bring those together to provide very valuable solutions. So that's how, it sometimes sounds too good to be true. How can you guarantee an ROI? How can you keep yourself in business? That's because we've got the skill and expertise in-house, and I've built the business deliberately like that to make sure that we can deliver a cost-effective solution over time. So that's where we come from. That's our approach to.
And that over time element is important as well, because I know, having spoken to you before, that part of your approach isn't to go in and achieve a lot and then leave. Your approach is to go in and understand that businesses change, especially if you're going in there changing them and helping them be more successful. That you have an ongoing approach. You remain with the business, and this is the partnership idea. You're in it for the long haul, really, and to changes as they happen.
You're exactly right, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Look, that's not to say we're locking anybody in. So we never get out. But they can do. But we'd rather work with a business, and process. Businesses change, and that's why our model sort of is designed to handle that. So a process you're using this today or next week is going to change. It's a living organism. Processes and businesses are living organisms, and they grow and change organically. and that's why, you know, we want to be with you during those changes. And so that's the approach, and that's built in from the ground up.
That's brilliant, and I think that might be a natural end point to this discussion. So I'm going to say thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you, Jen.
I expect we'll be speaking again.
Yes,
we're planning to talk on various different aspects of what you do, and of automation in general. So yes, we'll announce those very soon.
Excellent.
And yeah, thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Jane. Take care.